Hello everybody, welcome to the channel again. I've been getting lots of questions about the use of rawhide gear in the show pen, because not only do I braid, not only do I show horses, but I'm also holding judging privileges at this point in time for American Quarter Horse Association, National Reining Horse Association, National Rein Cow Horse Association, and the National Cutting Horse Association. With that said, I decided to do a little video on showing in a hackamore. And there's a lot of associations that differ just a little bit in their rules. And I'll start with the American Quarter Horse Association. Let me read what's in the rule book first. Hackamore means the use of a flexible braided rawhide, leather, or rope bosal, the core of which must be flexible. A hackamore must use a complete Makati rein, which must include a tie rein. Absolutely no rigid material will be permitted under the jaws, regardless of how padded or covered. Horsehair bosals are prohibited. This rule does not refer to a mechanical hackamore. Now, it needs to be said that it's pretty much only in the timed events, the speed events, where mechanical hackamore is allowed. Any other judged class, your mechanical hackamore is not allowed. Now, it doesn't say anything in this rule about dimensions of your bosal. So you can use pretty much anything you like, be it 3/4 or even a 1-inch bosal, or you want to go for a 1/4-inch bosal, whatever, not a problem. However, the bosal must be flexible. It also doesn't say anything about the core. So it may be a rawhide core, it may be, a compound core, steel cable core, whatever. You just don't use one with a steel rod in there, because that's not going to be flexible. In AQHA, the bosal is pretty much only used in junior classes or all age classes if your horse is 5 years old or younger, which means that in AQHA, the bosal is pretty much always ridden with both hands. So it's a two-handed headgear, and it's only horses 3, 4, and 5. So that's what covers it in AQHA. I gotta say that more and more, not only it used to be like a lot of pleasure horses in the junior classes were shown in a bosal. We see that, or I see that less and less over here at least. But we see more and more hackamores in the reining classes and the range horse classes and whatnot. Another association I want to go to is the National Reining Horse Association. Now there, it's a little different. And I'm just going to read the rule to you first. References to the hackamore mean the use of a flexible braided rawhide, leather, or rope bosal, the core of which may be either rawhide or flexible cable with a maximum diameter of 3/4 inch at the cheek. Absolutely no rigid material will be permitted under the jaws or on the noseband in connection with the bosal, regardless of how padded or covered. Horsehair bosals are prohibited. This rule does not refer to the so-called mechanical hackamore, which is illegal anyway in the NRHA. Now, the use of the hackamore a lot of times is a little different in the National Reining Horse Association than in the American Quarter Horse Association. First of all, now, NRHA has a class which is called the Snaffled Hackamore class. And it's either for 3-year-olds, 3 or 4-year-olds. Some will even, um, host a class, 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. In any Snafflebit Hackamore class, you can go two-handed, and you can change hands. I mean, you can bring your reins together in one hand, put your hat back on, not a problem. Absolutely no problem. But you can use a Bozell in any other NRHA class, but you got to go one-handed. Another thing is that as far as the Makati goes, it doesn't say you need to have a full Makati, including the lead rein. But if you do, to a lot of judges, you're going to look like a dink that didn't do his homework. That said, if you show one-handed in a Bozell, you cannot use Makati reins. You cannot use a closed terrain, because a closed terrain in NRHA is illegal to show with, unless it's a Rommel rein. And you do see once in a while somebody that puts a Rommel rein on a Hackamore. I just don't think it's a good idea. And basically, again, it looks like you're trying to reinvent the wheel all over again, and it's been invented years ago. That being said, Bill Black, for example, he made a certain string with rings on it that you can tie your Bozell with and just attach split rings to it. From what I've seen, I haven't tried it, but from what I've seen, it looked pretty good, and I think it's probably your best option to do that. Or, like I did in years past, is just have a little latigo string, like an old saddle string or something, and tie my Bozell up here, like where the reps of a Makati would be, and then on here attach split reins that I kind of tight back so they couldn't rise up. But like I said, Snafflebit Hackamore, two hands. Any other class, only use split reins on your Hackamore, and go one-handed. So that's a pretty big difference between the American Quarter Horse Association and National Reining Horse Association. Now comes a real big difference, because so far they've been talking about braided rawhide or braided leather or even rope. That was okay, and as long as the cord is flexible, you're all right. You can use whatever core you want. But when we go to the NRCHA, the National Reining Cow Horse Association, then all of a sudden it becomes a different ball game. And by that I mean that, first of all, the National Reining Cow Horse Association used to be called the California Reining Cow Horse Association, not because it was only for Californians, but because they pride themselves in upholding and preserving the traditions of the California Vaquero, where they used to have, some do and some don't have or used to have a Snafflebit stage, but it was mainly your Bozell stage, your two-range stage, and your straight-up bridle stage. If I read the rules like they're written down in the rule book of the National Reining Cow Horse Association, it says, Hackamore shall be round in shape and constructed of uniform braided rawhide or leather and have a non-metal flexible core. The noseband of the Hackamore must be at least 5.5 inches of smooth rawhide or leather before any braided buttons. No gimmick of any kind may be used in conjunction with the Bozell. No rigid material of any kind may be used regardless of how padded or covered in conjunction with the Bozell. Horsehair Bozells are prohibited. Tape is not allowed on the noseband of the Hackamore. And smooth, flat wrap tape is allowed on the hackamore between the headstall and the Makati. Maximum amount of tape allowed is 2 inches on each side of the hackamore. What does that mean? That the oval-shaped cheeks, there are some guys like, and I know, for example, Bill Black has made some, and Lane Thiessen has made some, I guess, and Len Yill, where you have an oval kind of cheek piece. That is not show legal for NRCHA, for the National Range Cowboys Association. Another thing is, and I made one for myself in the past, and turned out I didn't like it all that much, and I sold it, but a flat braid, like really a flat braid, and I make two. The first one I did was in a Argentinian Trenza Patria, and I didn't like the feel of that. And then I just took a flat strip of rawhide, braided 16 strands around it. It looked pretty damn good, but didn't like the feel of that either. It's just me, just my opinion. But those are not legal for NRCHA. Another thing is, it can only be rawhide or leather or the combination thereof. So no rope, no whatever, strictly rawhide and leather. Another thing is that they're not only saying that the cord needs to be flexible, but the other thing is it cannot be steel. It cannot be a steel cable. It cannot be a steel rod, whatever. Because if you show National Range Cowboys Association, every time you do a run, you got to come over to the judges and show your equipment. So if you show in a hackamore, like in a hackamore class, your judge will have a magnet ready. And like in my case, I can pretty much feel when it's a rawhide core or not. But in any doubt, the magnet goes through it. If it sticks, you're out. You're disqualified and you can go home. Another thing that's different between the NRCHA and, for example, the NRHA, the National Range Cowboys Association, is there's no size limit on the thickness of your cheeks. For the National Range Cowboys Association, right here, it cannot be wider than 3/4 of an inch. For NRCHA, you can use whatever you want, be it a 1 inch or a 3/8 or whatever. No problem there. But there's another thing on dimensions that they do say, which is that the nose button must be at least 5.5 inches long. Now, 5 inches long would probably only come to here. And if you put your hanger here, then you're going to be in the horse's eye instead of close to the horse's eye. That's one thing. But another thing is, what people used to do, this little bulge here is what we call the nerve knots. If you make a 5.5 inch nose button, and you got your nerve buttons here, and then you got some other buttons that hold your hanger right here, that would mean that it's not a smooth, long, continuous nose button, because you got two knots here that are pressing directly against the horse's face, way up too high on the bridge of the nose. So for National Range Cowboys Association, it's okay to have nerve knots, and it's okay to have mousing, no problem. But it's got to be smooth, and it's got to be, somewhat continuous, so you don't get any unfair advantage over anybody else that uses the correct stuff. So as far as the hackamore goes, you can show in the hackamore two hands Like if you're in a boxing class or a hackamore class, of course, in a bridle class, you can't do that because then you got the show in the bridle. But that's basically the main differences between those three associations that I kind of wanted to talk about. So when you want to go show in your hackamore, make sure that you know the rules, and if you get a good run, don't come out with a zero. So have fun, y'all. And if you like what I'm doing, please press that like button and subscribe to the channel, and that way we can get more content on here, and we can try to do a good job for y'all. So have fun.